Today, it's all about CWD updates. Coming up next for Unit CWD is the archery hunt, September 23rd to October 27th, and then it breaks for the juvenile hunt and picks back up October 30th. At that point, you can hunt with a gun, right?
Basically, right after juvenile in Unit CWD, you can hunt with a gun.
It runs through January 12th.
And again, that's just Unit CWD.
Right.
You know, make sure you check your hunting guide.
If you're in the guide, everything's color-coded. The names are there for the counties that fall in Unit CWD regulation. Good you mentioned that, because we're going to touch on transportation today, and that applies to a lot more counties. It's in our hunting guide, page 29. There's a pretty good map, and it shows which counties are in that management zone. It's not Unit CWD, but it's the management zone for transportation and feeding.
We established that zone to make things a little bit simpler for hunters as far as where they can take deer across county lines and whatnot.
You can go green to green. You can move it from yellow to yellow and yellow to green. But once you get it in that management zone, which is the green zone, it's not supposed to go back across the river into those yellow counties.
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a great show lined up for you today, Don.
Yeah, back at home here in Studio B. How about that?
We've been on the road for a few shows.
We have been.
But it's good to be back.
It is. It really is. And, hey, we got some good news as far as the radio station front goes.
Sweet. Let's hear it.
WCMT over in the Martin area, Northwest Tennessee, and AM 1410 on their FM side, 101.3 FM. And they've got a group of sister stations that are also joining in on the WildCast team. So
what's
anyway,
that bring us up to? Drum roll, please.
Oh, gosh, about 33 radio stations now. So
yeah. That's great. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
We were hanging in that 20 range for a long time. Now we're up to 30 plus, so that's great.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway, covering that area of the state really well now.
Awesome. Well, speaking of West Tennessee, we got some guys in here
that's what I was thinking.
Work in that area of the state.
Yeah, how about that?
WCMT, that's my neck of the woods, too.
All right, awesome. Well, that's the voice of Jeremy Dennison. He works out at the new facility out in West Tennessee for CWD, and he's going to be giving us some updates today. Appreciate you being here.
Sure. Hey, thanks.
And then we got Dr. Dan Grove with us today. He's going to be filling us in on some of the health issues and things with CWD.
Right, yep.
Disease and that sort of thing. We appreciate him being here. He's always helpful in those realms.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. Do you want to update folks? I kind of touched on it, but what do you do? What do you do, Jeremy, for the agency? What's your title and what's your role?
My actual title is CWD Field Coordinator. Basically, there's a whole lot of people that have a job related to everything CWD, and my job is to sort of facilitate the field activities and sort of manage kind of getting the samples to the lab and all that good stuff. So a lot of different things, but that's kind of putting it in a box. That's what it is.
It's a full-time job, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
CWD is here to stay, unfortunately, and at least out in West Tennessee. And
right.
It's a full-time job.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, Jeremy, before CWD, tell me what your role was.
Well, actually, not too long before CWD.
All 3 weeks of it?
Yeah. I came in at what is now biodiversity.
Okay.
Division. So I was a surveys manager and non-game at that time. And then was lucky enough to promote to the regional big game biologist in November of 2018. And then in December of 2018,
wow,
kind of got turned on its head. And
So 3 weeks, like Dan said. Yeah.
It was great. It was a great 3
weeks. We blame it on him.
Yeah. So,
and while we're touching on history, you grew up hunting and fishing in Tennessee?
Absolutely. Awesome. I grew up in Dyer County, deer hunting, squirrel hunting as a kid. Still deer hunt to this day. Awesome. Every chance I get. So yeah, I've always lived in West Tennessee. Live up around the Martin area. So yep,
awesome.
That's me.
Dan, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I serve as TWA's wildlife veterinarian.
Right.
I work for the University of Tennessee. In the university I'm with in Extension, and I serve as the wildlife health specialist for the state on behalf of Extension within the university.
Awesome. And you've been in Tennessee, since about 2018-ish, right? Or 19?
Yeah. Well, back to Tennessee. I actually grew up in East Tennessee.
That's right. That's right. I forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, kicking around in the Tennessee Valley and in the Smokies and places like that, camping and fishing and doing those kind of things as a little kid and,
awesome.
And whatnot.
So you bleed orange, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Both of my degrees are from there, and I now work there. So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, today, if you don't already know, I don't guess we really mentioned it, but it's all about CWD updates in this show. And I was going to highlight the season dates to get us started. Hope everyone enjoyed the August hunt. You know what? While I'm saying that, you said you had updates on the August hunt.
Sure, yeah, just some preliminary numbers I ran when I got to the office Monday just to kind of see what we're looking at. I know the August hunt is really dependent on the weather. You have some years where it's just super hot all 3 days.
This year?
Yeah, man.
Luckily, in parts of Tennessee, we got a little rain, and like the Sunday afternoon was actually really nice for the season.
Okay,
cool.
It was up a little bit from the year previous. It's actually about 740 deer statewide were harvested, which is a tick up from the 5-year average. And a lot, some people are getting out and taking advantage of that opportunity. Actually, of the 750 or so that were harvested, 650 or so were residents. So
okay,
about 95 or 100 were non-resident folks. So
very cool. That's good to know that some folks are coming out and enjoying that. Yeah. That's pretty neat. And that was the velvet hunt, folks call it. We call it the August hunt, but it's deer are in velvet more than likely.
More than likely. They don't have to be illegally harvested. It's a buck-only hunt.
Yeah.
That does mix some people up, that they have to be in velvet, but they do have to have antlers, but they don't have to be in velvet.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to try that season yet. I just can't get myself out there in the heat in that time of year.
I didn't go this year. I have gone previously. You got to have all your ducks in a row when it's that hot, and it was definitely a workout. Climb and stand and all that in August. So.
Have the ice chest ready.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, preserving that deer and getting it to the taxidermist or the processor.
Yeah, it takes a little extra planning that time of the year, but a lot of people are taking advantage of it, and I've seen some pictures of some really, really nice deer. I won't say it's easier in the summer, but you might get lucky enough to catch a mature buck still in a summer pattern as far as feeding. And, so.
And in those smiling faces, or in those pictures, there are smiling faces along with those nice deer.
Sure.
Everybody's always having a good time.
Absolutely.
All right, so coming up next is the archery hunt, September 23rd to October 27th for statewide, and then it breaks for the juvenile hunt, and then picks back up statewide October 30th through November 3rd. But for Unit CWD, that October 30th through the November 3rd date, you can, I guess, at that point you can hunt with a gun, right?
Basically, right after juvenile in Unit CWD, you can hunt with a gun.
Okay.
Through the end of the season.
End of the season,
so basically any weapon.
I was looking down, didn't look down far enough, but yeah, it doesn't stop on that November 30th. It runs through January 12th.
Yeah.
So.
And again, that's just Unit CWD.
Right.
Make sure you check your hunting guide. Make sure you know what deer hunting unit you're going to. So
I was checking out the little hunt planner card here, but yeah, in our guide, page 28, all the seasons are there, all the units, and then right next to that is the CWD information, and we're going to be touching on some of that today. So perfect. All right, Dan.
Yeah, just one quick thing to note about Jeremy touched on it there is just because a county has had CWD found in it, it may not have all the same regulations as Unit CWD. So
Correct.
Be careful to check which county specifically you're hunting in. Just because it had one positive or two positives, it may not have all the same regulations. And that's more on the management side of things. Because the less CWD, you don't have to be, there's not as many strict regulations in place, increased hunting opportunities in place in some of those counties. So, but all the incentive programs are available in all the counties that have been determined to be positive. It's just the extended seasons and things like that are not necessarily applicable to all those counties.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you're in the guide, everything's color coded. The names are there for the counties that fall in that Unit CWD regulation. So that's good you mentioned that, because we're going to touch on transportation today, and that applies to a lot more counties. So perfect. So folks who may be new to the show or new to Tennessee may not know we have CWD. Dan, will you touch on what it is?
Yeah. Chronic wasting disease is what CWD stands for. It is the long version of the disease that's caused by prions. And for CWD, it only impacts our cervid species here in Tennessee, and that's going to be, for our wild species, it's going to be our white-tailed deer and our elk. We have only found it in West Tennessee. It has not been found in our elk population, which is in East Tennessee, in either of the populations, the Park population or the Upper Cumberland population. Basically, all it is an abnormal protein. But it's infectious. And so when this abnormal protein gets into the animal, it gets exposed to the normal proteins and makes those normal proteins misshape and turn into the abnormal form of the protein. And when that happens, the body doesn't know what to do with it, can't break it down. These things start to bind together and form what we call plaques in basically in between the cells. And unfortunately, the place that these tend to form the most is in the brain and the central nervous system. And so that stops the animal from behaving normally the more it builds up. It's a really slow, progressive disease. Like if an animal was infected today, we probably wouldn't see any clinical signs, meaning the things that we can actually visually see, for at least 12 to 18 months. So it'd be next year around this time where we might potentially start seeing some signs in that animal.
So really the only way to know is to harvest it and have it tested and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And when you do see clinical signs in an animal, we actually do have an online sick deer reporting system that's statewide. We may not be able to get out to every deer. Certain deer meet the criteria of being able to try and get out there. A lot of times, by the time you get out to a deer that's been reported, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, it's not there. You go.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other diseases that can actually look like the clinical signs. Because basically the animal's just what we call unthrifty, right? Ain't doing right, ADR.
Yeah, something ain't right.
Yeah, poor hair coat, may look a little thinner, may still have velvet even like in December or something, something weird like that. Just overall, just not doing well. And it affects all sexes and all ages. They can be born with it. Or they can acquire it through direct transmission, so basically contacting another deer that has it, or potentially even picking it up from the environment, because it does persist in the environment for an extended period of time.
Yeah, unfortunately, it can do that. So that's what CWD is, and we discovered it in 2018 in Tennessee, right? But it's probably here more than likely. I mean, because like you said, it takes a while to show up.
Yeah, and based on the numbers that we have, it's probably been here for a while, and it just went undetected. Like I said, the clinical signs will mimic a bunch of other diseases, so unless you're getting your hands on every sick-looking animal and testing them, you just don't know. Because we do have another disease in the state, hemorrhagic disease, that's more frequent, and we've seen outbreaks of that since the 50s. And so people, we're accustomed to seeing sick animals and just, it's probably hemorrhagic disease. So there's a lot of potential. Some animals got missed there in the early years of introduction.
We did, as part of just regular check stations and biological data collection throughout the years. We did test. We've always tested deer ever since 2001, I think, is when it really started. So we tested a number of deer across the state every year. It did go undetected. I guess it was prior to 2018. We changed the way we did surveillance to more of a risk-based system. So maybe looking at areas that are closer to other states where CWD was known to exist. So we kind of switched around how we did surveillance, and unfortunately we detected it.
Yeah, there's actually county goals set now. Before it was a larger scale, and so with the county goals, it gives you a more finer scale ability to detect the disease. And again, as Jeremy mentioned, it's weight based. So the animals that are more likely to have come across the disease by contacting with other animals are weighted heavier in the scheme. So.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to applaud the agency because, I mean, the Wildlife Division has been working hard to test animals, like you said, since 2001. I wasn't sure of the date, but I knew it had been a while.
Yeah.
And sampling had been happening. It's just, was that till 18 you found it?
Yeah, a lot of times, everybody knows the annual check stations that we usually man on like opening weekend of opening Saturday of muzzleloader and rifle season. The majority of those throughout that time, they were taking a number of samples, just as a surveillance tool. So
and cleared, and then even out. So just so folks know, this happens all across the state. So that's why we know, and that we, we're pretty certain that there's not CWD across the parts of the state.
Yeah, like Dan mentioned, the county goals. If we meet those county goals, and for the most part we do every year. I won't say that we always do for every single county. But yeah, if we meet those goals, we can say with set up to say 95% certainty that if it's present, it's less than 1%. So we have a pretty good idea that we don't have it in those counties where it's not present now.
Yeah, or it's below detectability, which is always you can never say 100% that something is or isn't in a place,
right.
And so it could just be below our detection threshold. But on that note, we actually have met goals for every county since we started this in 2018. So we've got 5 years where we've met all the goals, and it's not just during hunting season. The goals are basically field staff have from July 1 of a year until June 30th. So basically the fiscal year to meet those goals. And so when we talk about these numbers, that's the time period that it is. And we set it up that way because the bulk of sampling is actually done during hunter harvest, because that's when we get access to more animals. But if the goals aren't met, then we can get roadkills, if other die-offs or things like that.
Those sick deer reports that Dan mentioned, those go to the appropriate personnel in each region. If those deer get sampled, that's point towards the surveillance goals too. So
sweet. Okay, great, awesome. So, and then throughout the year since 2018, there's been some spread. That's why some of those counties. That's why that unit is growing a little bit. And you check your guide, you can kind of see what. How the spreads happen, and visit our website cwdintennessee.com to see how that spread throughout the years. I don't want to stay there too long because I want to get to the transportation regulations that changed. That's what's kind of sparked this show. We had some questions coming in, and this was set I think back in February, and then but folks were so confused. I didn't know this went into effect. So it's in our hunting guide, page 29. But let's touch on the regulations and what changed there and how people can transport.
Right.
I just want to clarify one thing real quick. I wouldn't use the term spread up to this point because the way we were doing the surveillance, we kept moving out from where we originally detected it and doing more intensive in the periphery. And so what we've actually detected is probably where it was when we first found it.
Okay.
And so what we've finally gotten, because it was so intense in Fayette and Hardeman County, we had to keep going out further and further to see how far it already was. But to get that, like we mentioned before, you have to get a lot of samples to get like that one.
Yeah.
And so I think we're at that point now where anything from this point probably is true spread from our initial detection. But, and it's splitting hairs. But the reality, because everybody's like, oh, overnight we just have it everywhere. And it's like, well, it probably was there. It's just the rate at which we were trying to detect it, we had to change and we had to increase our sampling to find it at that lower level. And so I think we have a true idea of where it currently exists. And so at this point in time, we've really shifted into the monitoring phase of spread, as well as how many animals on the landscape or prevalence of the disease in the different counties. So just a minor point, but it's we get asked that a lot, and it goes into these regulations as to why didn't we just do this to start with? It's like, well, we originally only found it in 2 counties the first year, and then the next. So it didn't it doesn't just drastically overnight spread to the level that we have it. This took a long time, and so it takes about 5 years after you first find the disease to kind of truly figure out what's going on in the landscape. And we're at that point. Last year was our 5th surveillance year since we found it. So that's really what we're looking at. So moving forward, we've got a better idea, so we're putting regulations into place that are more sensible, make more sense for the hunter, as well as what we actually know about the disease, to not prohibit people, but also make it less confusing, regulatory wise. So we're sort of at that, because regulations have had to change each year because we kept finding it at different places each year. And so, last year was the first year we didn't add any new counties.
That's what I was going to say. We didn't add a new positive or high-risk county this past year. So hopefully, like Dan said, we've sort of identified the distribution. So.
And transportation is one of those tools, right? That
yes.
Are in place that you can help restrict the
regulating transportation of deer carcasses and parts, and then regulating feeding and placing food and minerals on the ground.
Right.
So elaborate on that, and folks, if you've got the guide in front of you, there's a pretty good map right there. I mean, it's green and yellow, and it shows which counties are in that management zone. It's not Unit CWD, but it's the management zone for transportation and feeding.
Yeah, and that's just for transportation and feeding restrictions. But yeah, like Dan said, to sort of simplify, to make things a little bit simpler for hunters as far as where they can take deer across county lines and whatnot. Since we have a pretty good handle on the distribution, it's present either in or adjacent to most of the counties west of the river, of the Tennessee River. We established that zone. So basically, hunters can transport deer anywhere inside that zone from river to river, and including all of Hardin County and Wayne County. So that's kind of all the CWD affected counties all in one group. So for disease management purposes, we definitely don't want to discourage people from being able to hunt and continue to hunt like they have, or even increase that. So that's one thing that we hope will help. Also, to kind of fight against the further spread. That's the other side of it, is regulating feeding and minerals and things like that within that zone. Anything that you put on the ground specifically to congregate animals to one spot can be a source of infection. Like Dan explained, animal-to-animal transmission or transmission from the environment. So,
there are exceptions to the feeding and bait. Well, obviously you can't hunt over bait. You can't do that anywhere in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
But the feeding portion of it, there are restrictions for exemptions for normal agricultural practices like spilled grain. Like, if you're harvesting your cornfield or your soy field and you spill some grain, because obviously not every little last bean, every last piece of corn gets into the bin, right?
Right.
So there's exemptions for that. Orchards, things like that, food plots, whatever. There's exemptions. And like if you got a bird feeder within, is it 100?
100 feet,
100 feet of the house, or 100 yards of the house?
Yeah, 100 feet.
Yeah.
100 feet of the house, that's exempt if it's attracting deer. But we still would encourage, if you do have a food source of that is attracting deer, if there's something you can do about it to just disperse that and keep that from happening, that's probably the best, especially if you're in an area that's known to have the disease. And if you're on the leading edge of it, that's a good way to keep it from spreading into your area, by potentially bringing deer into the area that might have it. So.
Right. Well, and for some folks it may burden, but other folks it probably made it easier for people to get a deer processed or get it to a taxidermist in that area of the state.
Right.
Just know that you can go green to green. If you're looking at the map, you can move it from yellow to yellow, but and yellow to green. But once you get it in that management zone, which is the green zone, it's not supposed to go back across the river into those yellow counties. So just make sure you check out your map, page 29 of the guide.
And we know there's always whenever you draw a line and make one county one thing and another something else, there might be conflicts throughout this since 2018 with these regulations. Since it constantly was changing, there was always new conflicts with, especially transportation. So this is not a perfect situation for every particular maybe person, but we hope for the most part this is a simpler situation. So
two key things to mention on the transport is, if you're hunting out of state and bringing it back, there's restrictions for that also.
Yeah, going out of state,
yeah. They're pretty much the same restrictions that we have for the green zone. You can't bring things back in. It's got to be boned out, caped out, skull's got to be clean, all that kind of stuff, or taxidermied. So you can't bring whole parts back in, basically, from out of state. And if you're going if you're coming into Tennessee and going to another state, you need to check that state's regulations to make sure you're not in violation, because you may be in accordance with ours, but they may have something different in place that you may get dinged for if you take it back to your home state.
Good points. That's awesome. Yeah. So we touched on transportation, touched on feeding. We're going to run out of time if we don't move on. You got a new facility. Jeremy, tell me about the new facility you've got out in Jackson area. Is that right?
just east of Jackson, pretty close to exit 87. If anybody out that way knows where that is. Since we started this in 2018, one thing was apparent: we didn't really have a place to work.
It was humble beginning.
It was very humble. It was very humble, and we've sort of transitioned to different levels and kind of made do. We worked last year out of a leased facility that
that was nice. That was nice.
We made the best. We made the best of the situation and kind of got the work out, but.
Lots of retrofitting in those places.
Yeah. I mean, the agencies, made the commitment to doing this testing and providing this for hunters. So, we are lucky enough to build a new work base. Basically, everything from the field side of CWD will happen there. So, everything that's submitted for testing, whether it's through a processor or a taxidermist where the sample's collected, that'll end up there. Those samples get processed and shipped. The big thing is the freezer program. A lot of people use that to get their deer tested. They'll bring us the head with a tag attached and all that with their information. All those tissue samples will be collected there. It's actually set up, like Dan mentioned, the retrofitting. It's set up for, to be able to clean it, to be able to sanitize things, and really do what we need to do from a kind of biosecurity type situation. So, that's pretty much what's going to happen. I think last year we did about 18,000 samples out of the facility that you guys visited. Will probably be in that range again, if not more, this time.
Are these coming from all across the state, right?
No, mainly
the West.
Mainly West Tennessee and Wayne County.
Okay.
We run the Wayne County samples through. We work with the Region 2 personnel to run those samples through our facility.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And all the other surveillance stuff that's happening is done in the region.
It's done in the regions. Like I said, it's still done mainly through check stations.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of those, the regional biologists will work with local taxidermists or processors to get to their quotas. But, yeah.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to run out of time. Let's go to so at that facility, all best management practices are taking place to make sure the samples are done correctly and disposed of correctly and all that fun stuff.
Exactly.
We talked about submitting samples. The turnaround time, can you touch on that real fast?
Yeah, we try to keep it under 2 weeks, basically as a general rule. We try to do better than that when we can. I think last year it was about 9 days for Region 1 samples. Maybe a little more. It's not, maybe not that fast in other parts of the state, but yeah, we try to get them out as fast as possible.
Okay, and then you're going to be notified by email. A lot of the times, most of the time, positives are you get a call, so you know.
Yep.
We'd like to know where that deer was harvested so we can put another dot on the map to kind of know.
Location's really important.
Yeah, and have folks make sure that your email address and everything is correct in your agency in your licensing account, so that we have a good contact to get in touch with you.
So go to gooutdoorstennessee.com. Make sure your email is up to date right there. While you're there, make sure your address is up to date. If you get the magazine, make sure that's up to date so you can get subscriptions and things from us. Appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah,
no problem. Glad to be here.
A good update. I even learned a few things and just kind of refreshed my memory as the deer season's starting to fire up.
Starting to get that time.
Yeah, it's starting to cool off. Football is here. Go Orange. Go Big Orange, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And but anyway, excited for this season and what it holds. I'm gonna get out there and try to do some hunting. Hope you guys do too.
I'll be there.
Everybody get out there, hunt early, hunt often, and make use of your bag limits and your incentive programs.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah, we didn't even touch on incentives. That's on page 30 of your hunting guide, so check that out as well. This is Tennessee WildCast. Thank you, Don.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Thanks
a lot.
Dan and Jeremy, appreciate it. We'll see you next time and keep coming back.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.